Good morning, and thanks for joining us here today. We have the pleasure of the CEO of Verus Mining Metals and the CEO of Ionic Rare Earths here to talk to us about the joint venture that they formed for metals recycling and the Colossus deposit in Brazil, and to discuss a bit more around the Belfast metals recycling, magnet recycling facility in Belfast. We're going to talk here today with the CEO, Rafael Moreno from Viridis, and the CEO from Ionic Rare Earths, Mr. Tim Harrison. Good morning, gentlemen.
Morning, Peter.
Yeah, hi, Peter. How are you?
Could you please summarise the joint venture agreement between Viridis and Ionic Rare Earths? And what was the catalyst, Tim, for this agreement between the two companies?
So the JV is a 50-50 JV between both Viridis and Ionic. And I think what it does is it brings together some of the positive attributes of both businesses. So we've seen recently the resource estimate, the maiden resource estimate from Colossus, and certainly from an Ionic Rare Earths perspective, we've been doing a lot of work on the downstream supply chain, and we do think that we have skills that can be applied to the joint venture. So the joint venture will deliver both magnet recycling and rare earth refining capacity in Brazil. 50-50 basis, looking to take product from the Colossus project, so the mixed rare earth carbonate that will be generated at that project, and converting that into separated rare earth oxides. And then on the magnet recycling, we're looking to leverage the rapid speed at which we're working on the commercialisation of that tech in Belfast, and now applying that technology and that capability in Brazil to further the potential deployment of metal alloy magnet capacity in Brazil. So I think we're in a unique position to expedite that value addition potential in Brazil.
And Tim, certainly the Belfast facility, where you already are producing rare earth oxides, has been a great leap that takes you into this joint venture. But what's the current operational status for the Belfast magnet recycling facility and the outlook for the rest of 2024?
Yeah, so we announced earlier this year that we'd gone to commercial production on the demonstration plant. So we are producing now separated magnet rare earth oxides. We expect the first delivery of product to our collaboration partners next month, being Less Common Metals, who will then convert that into metal and alloy. That'll then go to a European magnet manufacturer, and then ultimately those magnets will then go back to Ford, where we will see those magnets in an electric motor developed at Halewood in the UK. So, we're rapidly progressing that commercialisation of the process in Belfast. And as we look to certainly the rest of 2024, but well into fourth quarter next year, we've been inundated by requests to work with other partners on the supply chain. So we've got potentially a full program at that demonstration plant out until, as I mentioned, Q4 2025. So over the next 18 months, we'll continue to process material and convert that to commercial partnerships.
And Rafael, great for you to join us here today. We appreciate your input here. Could you talk to us about the significance of the joint venture co for Viridis and its stakeholders?
I guess first and foremost, it's not every day that you get the opportunity to form a strategic partnership with a company such as IXR, who've been really leading the way for quite some time now with their separation and refining sort of technology of individual rare earth oxides, and also the magnet recycling technology, which is evident, I guess, as Tim mentioned, from the appreciable amounts of high purity sort of magnet rare earth oxides that have been produced from the demonstration plant in Belfast, which, by the way, I had the pleasure of visiting a couple of weeks ago, which was really fruitful. So, but the significance for me, the JV is profound. I guess knowing that we have a world-class sort of tier one asset at our disposal right now, and a de-risk pathway for the regulatory approvals. And for me, the main risk that really remains, if we're wanting to be the next sort of main global player in that rare earth oxide market, is the downstream refining technology. And this JV goes a long way in de-risking that timeline to become that producer. And for those that sort of have been following our journey, Peter, to date, will know that we've been moving really quickly through the development stage gates. To be honest with you, in anticipation of delivering a facility that's capable of producing a globally significant amount of mixed rare earth carbonate and at a cost on par or less than the Chinese, such that even at today's prices, we're one of the few projects globally that's robust enough to be making money. And thus, for me, the JV is important because it allows Viridis to capture the full value of the Colossus project rare earth basket, and also any other rare earth project that we're going to apply this technology to, as I'm sure Tim would be keen to do. So yeah, the JV is paramount, puts us at the forefront of rare earth companies who can compete with the Chinese on a cost basis, and will have the downstream technology to produce those individual rare earth oxides to support the sort of Western supply chain that's being built as we speak.
Certainly, it takes a lot of guesswork out of where your product will be going and how it will be refined. That's a massive, significant attribute. Rafael, how advanced is Brazil's strategy for involvement in the Western world supply chain? Can you talk about the Brazilian government's involvement and the dialogue underway between yourselves and the authorities?
I'll break it down to a couple of things then. So I guess Brazil, like most of the Western world, is playing catch up. We all understand that. But I can confirm there's a strong commitment at federal, state, and local government level to support all facets of the rare earth and, in general, energy transition type supply chain. And this includes the miners, downstream alloy and magnet manufacturers, and just as importantly, as sort of Tim touched on, the recycling of end-of-life magnets. So us being a miner with the ambitions of going as far downstream as possible, there have been several fantastic initiatives already by the Brazilian government and the National Mining Agency to support the timely permitting of projects. And this includes examples from A&M, the National Mining Agency, changing the mining law to allow the mining of rare earths to be added into existing mining licenses without having to start the whole mining license approval process from scratch, which, hazard a guess, would take an extra 1 or 2 years to execute these project timelines. The other bookend is the very important MOUs that Viridis ourselves have already signed with both the state of Minas Gerais and its economic arm of Invest Minas, and also the local municipality of Poços de Caldas to fast track our environmental approval process. So, the Brazilian government, from the meetings I've had, they're also pushing for maximising the full value of the rare earth supply chain in country. And this was evident at the 2-day critical raw materials conference that I was invited to attend a few months back in Brasilia, which included the Brazilian government and EU Commission and key miners and sort of members of the supply chain. And the fact was the EU were keen to secure the final elements or parts required for the energy transition through various funding and sort of off-taking options. And Brazil were keen to maximise the value from its natural resources, and hence are willing to support any company such as Viridis and Ionic Rare Earths who can fill that technology gap to allow the full value to be achieved in country. So, the second part about the dialogue, apart from the MOUs that I've already mentioned that we've signed, there's ongoing discussions on how the government can support us with approvals, grants, funding, etc., for our Colossus project. And I can confirm, and it's something which I've spoken to Tim about, that the fact that we have the JV with IXR for downstream refining and recycling technology is making us more attractive compared to our peers and puts us at the top of that stack when it comes to government support.
It surely shows to Brazilian mining authorities that you're well and truly advanced, and an investment both financially and help-wise from them is going to pay off earlier. To Tim, recently Rafael visited the Belfast facility, and I believe there may have been some Brazilian authorities representatives there as well. What were the key takeaways from the visit, and what action has this visit triggered for both companies?
Yeah, look, I mean, we've had a lot of visitors coming through Belfast over the course of the last few months. We hosted a delegation from the Brazilian government in April. It was a very positive meeting. We've been in dialogue with the Brazilian government for the best part of 2 years, and very keen for us to bring the magnet recycling technology to that market. the timing, I think, now represents a great opportunity for Ionic and through the JV with Viridis, to actually seize the initiative with a supportive government there to expedite the magnet recycling as part of a first step towards value addition in country. So, they're already requesting us to get over there, and I'm working now with Raf and the team from Viridis on what those next steps look like. Certainly, firstly, to prioritise the delivery of magnet recycling and that value addition in country, but also now putting in place a framework to execute initially the scoping study on a refinery in Brazil. We certainly have a very supportive government who have indicated support from a number of government ministries, plus advanced manufacturing in that market. So I think we have all of the building blocks there to be very successful with this joint venture. We've got an extremely supportive Brazilian government who's very keen for us to move at pace to build this capacity. And I think being able to leverage the resource and the potential of the Colossus project into a footprint for Ionic rare earths through the joint venture in that Brazilian market, I think it creates huge potential for value and upside longer term.
And that brings us to a good segue into the Colossus resource. Raphael, can you please discuss with us the exploration and resource delineation work underway at the project, and what are the next steps towards development so that the products that you're looking to generate from there can be used in this joint venture co?
So the exploration, it's really been moving at an incredible pace since the project acquisition in August last year, and I'm ecstatic with the maiden resource estimate that we issued to the market last week. And albeit the resource estimate only covered less than 7% of our sort of total land holding, we released a pretty impressive 200 million tonnes at a grade of just short of 2,600 ppm of total rare earth oxide. And for me, even more impressive is that we had 660 or 670 parts per million of magnetic rare earth content, which really is one of the few key parameters that the investment community needs to understand when evaluating if a project is sort of commercially viable. And from what I'm aware, I believe we're one of the highest, if not the highest, sort of magnetic rare earth content globally for an Ionic clay project. So we're obviously over the moon with that, but a lot of work still to go. And you sort of touched on what are other steps are involved in that development timeline. So we're busy doing our infill drilling at our northern concessions and also at our Coupam South extension to define an indicated resource at both concessions. Lots of network and quite a significant program with ANSTO in Sydney to optimise mainly the flow sheet. So whether it's the leaching conditions to the downstream impurity removal to then the mixed rare earth carbonate, all of that's now kicked off after sending sort of quite a few kilos to them a few weeks back. Looking to complete the scoping study with Hatch Engineering in Q3 2024 is a really important milestone and show the market how robust the business can be, even with these prices. And we move straight into the pre-feasibility study as well, so we don't skip a beat there. We're busy with the environmental side of things, so the baseline surveys and all the various studies, and in anticipation of issuing our sort of our LP license later this year. And the last part, I guess, is what we're talking about here, and that's the downstream study with IXR for the separation and also the recycling side of things. So as you can see, Peter, there's a lot going on in that development side of things, not just the exploration world.
Yeah, and it is well progressed too, by the sounds of it. There's been some good information here this morning from both companies. I'm just going to ask to summarise how the joint venture co will accelerate growth plans for both companies. What should shareholders expect from coming milestones related to the joint venture program? Firstly, to Tim.
Yeah, so Peter, I think from Ionic's perspective, this joint venture enables Ionic to actually get a footprint and a presence in Brazil, which we've been evaluating for some time and really been quite sort of measured around how we do this. We do see tremendous value in downstream and going beyond mixed rare earth carbonate to value-added oxides, metals, alloys, magnets. And so on the back of this, through obviously the refinery, but I think primarily in the first step through the recycling, we can be a key enabler of that new capacity to come online. So, we are working with a number of groups now around what that looks like, the ability to go beyond the separated magnet rare earth oxides from recycling in Brazil to metals, alloys, magnets, to work with the supply chain, to work with advanced manufacturing in the Brazilian market with a supportive Brazilian government. So I think, there's a tremendous upside for Ionic rare earths longer term. And I think, working with Viridis, where we can see a great project that has the potential to be part of a new theatre for rare earths. It's going to have scale. And I think that Brazilian market has the potential to create an ecosystem that can supply both North America and Europe for many decades to come. And I think Ionic Rare Earths wants to be a part of what's going to emerge in that market.
I think it's a great joint venture that the two companies have put together here. Raphael, your summary.
Yeah, no, I'll echo the comments from Tim, and I guess one of the things, as I mentioned earlier, about the Brazilian government wanting to maximise the full value chain in Brazil, I can see the JV gaining significant support from approvals through to grants and financing, and thus for me, the growth plans that you spoke about, it de-risks that development pathway, and for me accelerates some of the things Tim just touched on, both with the recycling and refining, and that's important to us. And I guess in terms of milestones, I think you asked as well, Tim was in Perth a couple of weeks back where we had a workshop. We discussed a lot of this sort of stuff where, shareholders should be excited that we're looking to commence the refining scoping study and also the recycling technology scoping study sort of in the July-August timeframe, both of them aiming to complete by the end of the year. And that's paramount because in parallel, we're already looking to find an appropriate site for a pilot plant and obviously gain the regulatory approvals to execute that work. All in all, aiming to have that facility up and running by the end of next year. So as you can see, there's a lot of work to be done, not just in the short term, but obviously next year as we move quickly to try and prove that technology and gain that sort of accreditation within Brazil as the leading recycling and downstream technology provider.
Thank you to CEOs Raphael Marino and Tim Harrison for some insight around the joint venture set up between the two companies. I'm sure shareholders will be very excited to see how this continues to progress over the coming months and the rest of the year. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks, Peter.
Thanks, Peter.